The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Supernatural, metaphysical, paranormal. You know, all those things you've been wondering about? Are you ready to go deeper into the realms of the unknown? I hope you've got your walking shoes on, because life is an adventure, and this is the journey. Come on, let's go. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and we are the She-Squatchers. Of course, I'm Jen Cruz, your host, and I've got my trusty teammate, Tammy Trickle. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, everybody.
We don't have Jenna tonight. We're missing Jenna.
Yeah.
So let's send her good vibes. She's not feeling too hot.
Feel better.
We love you. And we've got a very special guest for you tonight. Something a little different for you. We're going to be talking about Dogman. Shock, surprise. Oh, it's not Bigfoot, everyone. We're doing Dogman tonight. So we've got a very special guest. We've got Jody Cook with us. Hi, Jody. Welcome to the show.
Hi. How you guys doing?
Very good. Thank you for coming to join us tonight.
Oh, I was counting on it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I screwed up our schedule in my head, and I didn't check it on paper. And so, yeah, I thought we had Ron Moorhead tonight, but that's next week. It's tonight. We're Jody Cook. I was so excited. I'm like, where's our Dogman? So we have been primarily focusing on Bigfoot since we started that journey. But prior to that, we were doing paranormal work, and we haven't learned a whole lot about Dogman yet. So we're kind of counting on you to educate us.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this?
I've been doing research for about 30 years. Okay. Prior to all the Dogman Bigfoot stuff, I was a UFO investigator. And now this is back in the 80s and early 90s before they had cable TV. We did a live show called UFO Update Live, and it was on public access TV. And it was a live show we did the first Wednesday of every month. It ran for about 10 years. And we talked about UFO stuff, and then we started getting a lot of Bigfoot reports coming in that's connected to UFO stuff or some other, type of cryptids. And, after probably about 3 years doing the show, I decided to take on the Bigfoot stuff because I thought, there might be something interesting here. I mean, I got hooked on it. It was one of these things I was eating, drinking it. I was, every single bit of free time I had, I was out in the field. I just fell in love with it and did the Bigfoot research, for about 20 years. And, you know how the field's been getting, a lot of politics in the field, a lot of cliques and things like that. And it was one of these things that I decided to, I wanted to kind of venture out a little bit and, do research on my own and just keep it to myself. And then I started hearing about this creature called Dogman. So I was looking at it and I said, there's something interesting about this. There's something to it because a lot of people are seeing it. And, I knew that there was some type of existence of this animal, in the United States going at least back 100 years due to newspaper reports. And the biggest case that everybody may know about is in the Defiance, Ohio case in 1972, where they called it a werewolf at the time, harassed this town for several days and actually attacked people and was killing livestock. And the police were taking it so serious that they had to basically put out a false statement that it's probably a costume of a madman because he's wearing clothes, and there's no reports of this thing ever wearing clothes. And I really got hooked into that, just strictly staying with Ohio because there was a lot of stuff. And it turns out that, this thing's like all over the country. So I started the organization, the North American Dogman Project. And then we started to get people say, I want to join. I live in this state. That's cool. Let's start a chapter. So, right now we're, the largest dogman research organization on planet Earth. We have 800 members worldwide. We have chapters just about in every single state. We have them in Canada, Australia, New Zealand. We have them in Europe. We have them in the United Kingdom. We have them in India. We have 2 chapters in Africa because they're having sightings of it, there too. So we get reports coming in all over the world. So this thing is this creature or apex predator is just something that is fascinating to people, and it's also most terrifying for some of these reports. Believe it or not, we built a chart, like a pie chart, okay, and it talks about where it's broken down between military, police, and civilians, and we get a lot of reports from military and a lot of reports from law enforcement on this, on this creature, just as much as we do on civilian population.
So how many reports are coming in? How common is this happening, and how close to town?
We're averaging right now about 30 reports a month. Sometimes it varies. Sometimes we get about 40 reports. It just really varies on the year, the seasons and things like that. Obviously in, summer and fall, a lot more sightings than there are in the winter and spring. But this is all over the country. States that you would never think that, like California, perfect example, never had any sightings until like the last 6 years. And they're all over the place. Same thing with Washington and Oregon. The Four Corners is a very hot spot. The biggest hot spots in the United States is the Northeast, which you'd go from Illinois up to Michigan, going all the way down to Kentucky and shooting all the way up into New Jersey and New York. That whole area is the biggest hot spot right now.
So not Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, we got reports in Minnesota, but not as much as we do in the eastern part of the country.
Okay. Why do you think there's... Go ahead. Oh, I'm just wondering why you think there's so many more sightings now. Are people just feeling more brave to report it? Or is this something there's more activity? Are they breeding more than they were before?
Well, right now there's a lot more activity taking place. When you start building and doing construction and building homes and suburbs and things like that, then you start getting more reports and sightings. But it's just it seems that they're picking up. Within the last 3 years, the reports coming in from like 3 years ago today is popped up like 42% in 3 years. That's a lot. So, a lot more people are outside. A lot of people are, in the woods, they're hiking. But with that being said, a lot of these sightings are inside small suburbs and even inside small towns, just not on the outskirts. Inside these small towns. Like I live in Cincinnati, which is, a very huge city. And we have one particular area that has all the industry and where all the old slaughterhouses used to be. And there was a sighting right there. Someone was driving down the road and saw one cross the road. A very heavily industrial area. So, to them, they're not afraid of us. That's why they're coming into these small communities. Germantown, Ohio, perfect example. There was a group of women that was in a beauty salon on a Saturday afternoon, and one came right into town, was looking right into the window. And they thought, oh, there's a dog standing up looking in the window. And it just stood there, and then it walked off. And then they all got up and looked out the window and just watched this thing cross the road in the middle of a town on a Saturday afternoon, heading back into the farm area.
So the questions in the chat room are just like blowing up right now. And Sherry's wondering if the global varieties are genetically different in statistical significance. Like, are they any different from one location to another? The Dogman reports.
Yeah, there are different variations of it. There's different types. You have the most well known is the canine, which looks like your typical Van Helsing style werewolf. Something like from that movie, The Howling. And then you have your type 3, which is very muscular. The head is still canine, but the body and the legs are more of a human shape, is the best way to describe it. Now, in Europe, it's strictly, like, when I say Europe, I'm talking, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and the UK. It's strictly canine in characteristics. Now, in the reports we're getting from India and the reports we're getting from Africa, looks more like a hyena than a actual wolf itself. But the characteristics of the body is still about the same. It's just the head and the face and the snout is more like a hyena. So here in the United States, we have the the type 2, the type 3, and the canine, and that's going all the way up into Canada. Now, the ones on the we've been talking with some Border Patrol agents that have been seeing these things and very well familiar with them on the U.S. Mexican border, and they're describing this thing as strictly canine and characteristics, because it's able to go down on all fours and walk on two legs. And there's one particular area that the Border Patrol watches that they don't even like going into this area because they see them a lot there.
So what are they? I've heard people speculate that maybe they are werewolves, like people turning into these hybrids.
No, the thing, it's a flesh and blood creature, okay? But it's also, there's supernatural elements to it, the best way to describe it. It's something that I believe has always been there. It can be some type of a hybrid or some type of genetics, the way this animal is formed. I don't think it's definitely not something that was built in a lab and let out. There are just too many of them out there for them to do that. But this is just something I think that has always been here, just like Bigfoot has always been here. So, but when I say there's a supernatural realm to this, because we get reports where people have seen this thing appear, disappeared, able to communicate through telepathy, where they're able to pick up different vibes or something from this animal, where they're able to, see it before it happens or after, or something to that effect. So it's really hard to really pinpoint if you want to say if it's definitely flesh and blood or if it's definitely supernatural, because the amounts of sightings that we get seem to go towards more supernatural than the flesh and blood, if that's the best way I can explain it.
What kind of supernatural things are happening?
Well, people, when they see it, it appears, it disappears. But what people have to understand, animals that are out in the woods, okay, their coats, okay, blend into the environment. Okay, you can walk by a rabbit, you can walk by a deer, and the deer pops out like right in front of you because you don't see it, but it sees you. So I think that's when people say it appears and disappears. It's because this thing blends into the environment, and you just don't see it till you're right on it or this thing moves. Now, other things where people have dealt with where they seen telepathy or talked to them telepathy, where they had some type of communication with them, or they felt was able to put fear into the person, where basically the people they were just frozen with fear and they couldn't move while they're seeing this thing. It didn't make any aggression towards them, but it was just able to put them into this type of, trance with fear until it was able to move off. We get plenty of reports dealing with that. And then you would have like a flashing light before the sighting or a flashing light after the sighting. And a whole lot of people, believe it or not, they believe that these particular cryptids are what's part of what you would say the inner earth theory, where there's a whole realm of civilization inside the earth. And these cryptids are probably something that's part of this inner earth. So, which could be supernatural itself. But the thing of it is, the organization, we look at everything. The only thing we don't look at is transformation. Okay. Transformation, when one organism transfer into another one, it's totally impossible. It would literally kill somebody because your bone structure would have to be like cartilage. It would destroy your organs. It's just something that it's impossible.
So not a skinwalker.
Well, it depends. Now, when you say skinwalker, now you have to understand something. Okay, I did a lot of research on this. I talked to a lot of Native Americans about skinwalkers. Okay, when Native Americans talk about skinwalkers, okay, they're going by what their ancestors told them. Okay, where this thing was able to turn into a wolf or turn into a rabbit or something like that. Okay, you talk to a Native American today about a skinwalker. Okay, tell me about a skinwalker. Well, let me tell you how I handle with a skinwalker. I got a guy who's on the ranch next to me. We're having a water dispute. I'm going to call a skinwalker in to take care of the guy, either to kill him, put a mojo on him, or something to that effect. And that's serious. That happens. Okay, that's how they look at the skinwalkers today. I've actually talked to Native Americans that have told me that they have done this. Well, at a dispute, they would get a hold of a skinwalker. So it's different the way they look at it now to, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or 200 years ago.
So basically, they're thinking of them as medicine people who are doing bad medicine.
Exactly. But here's another thing you have to look at. Were these skinwalkers that they're seeing, were they dogmen, or, was it some type of mystical magic that they were able to put some type of diversion on someone to make them believe that they transferred into a wolf or into an eagle or something to that effect. The Native Americans look at things different than we do. Okay, they represent things different than we do. Okay, so now the indigo, okay, that's their version of Satan. Now that's something extremely, extremely burnt into them, because that's a whole different type of realm where the indigo can go into the form of what you would say like a werewolf or something to that effect. So it's a whole thing about possession and so forth. That, like you said, but a lot of people get the Wendigo confused with the skinwalker. So they're two different things.
I agree with that. I'm actually part Native American. I'm a tribal member of the Red Lake Band of Chippewa Indians in northern Minnesota. So I'm familiar with the Wendigo, and I would definitely agree that's not Dogman.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's like, my grandmother is full-blooded Cherokee, and I talked to her, when I was a child, about the skinwalker, and things. And, I knew more about Bigfoot from the Cherokees. Because they used the Cherokee Indians had a dance they called the booger dance. And what the booger dance was a male or female Sasquatch that would go dance in the circle with the children. And basically, if the children didn't do what their parents said, the booger would come and grab them and take them away and put them in a basket. Well, that's where we all grew up as hearing about the boogeyman. It all goes back to the booger dance and the booger of the Cherokee Nation. If you don't go to bed, the boogeyman's going to get you. So it all comes from the Cherokee, booger dance.
I understand. There was a question in the chat room, and I was wondering the same thing. You talked about there being a flashing light, and we'd like to know more about that. Is there specific colors? Is it like one of those strange lights that people report, like with Bigfoot?
It's a blue flashing light. Okay. And we had several reports from military personnel who have seen these things in battlefields of Afghanistan and Iraq and South America. And before they even had any type of sightings of the thing, there was either a flashing blue light prior or after their sighting. So is that extraterrestrial? Because these creatures that they were seeing on the battlefield were actually wearing some type of body armor or protective suit. I mean, I've had U.S., Canadian, and European soldiers who are in Afghanistan have seen these things, and they described them to the T. And they said, imagine a werewolf or a wolf wearing a bodysuit that had no gloves, no helmet, or no feet to it, or they weren't wearing any type of boots. So, about 6-7 years ago, I did a conference Mid-South in Kentucky, and everybody went to the restaurant to eat. So I went to the bar to get a drink, and there was a guy there, and he was military. You can tell by his tattoos and his haircut, asking, what was going on here, and where's all these people? And, he told me it was a paranormal conference, and he goes, so, were you a ghost, one of these ghost hunters and stuff? And I said, no, I do Dogman. And he laughed. Dogman, yeah. And we just started talking, about military stuff. And he goes, I'm going to tell you something. He goes, I was special forces, and now I'm with a contract with the United States government. My job is to recover down UFOs. And I'm listening to this guy, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be a good story, but he keeps going on. He's telling me about in the early 70s, the United States got in contact with a new alien species. And these alien species were predators, and they were canine in nature. And there was a downed craft. The U.S. recovered it. They were survivors. Okay. And this happened in the 1970s. But another craft was taken down, and there were survivors from that. And that they were so dangerous because they were an apex predator that they weren't even allowed to be kept in the country. So they were kept on a installation in Honduras. Now, he said these things are problem-solving creatures. They have no common sense, but they're extremely intelligent. But they were able to get out of the facility. They killed a bunch of people in the facility and got out. His job was to go down with his team and take care of the situation and kill them. And he described them. He goes, they're very wolf-looking. They had a type of body armor that they wore, and it was some type of protective suit. And we have specialized weapons that we had to end up using to kill these things. But he said when we killed them, they let out this really scary scream. So they end up killing them. We're down there. So I thought that was an interesting story. So I mentioned it to Linda Godfrey. And Linda Godfrey said, Jody, I had a guy tell me this same story about a year ago. And I said, this is what the guy looked like. He goes, no. She goes, I know who this guy is. So that kind of validated the story that it happened. But think about this. The first contact with these creatures was in the 1970s. Okay. Star Wars came out, 1978, 79. Okay. He had werewolves that were in the bar scene. Now, Jim Baker, who made the mask, said that George Lucas specifically had him make those masks. Now, George Lucas was a Mason. Okay. So half the people that ran NASA was Masons. So he was able to get stuff from NASA when he was making Star Wars that most people who had high security clearance at NASA wasn't even able to see. Okay. Now, perfect example. There's a picture on the internet right now. If you type in Richard Hoagland's Dark Mission robot head, and this was a picture that was taken from one of the Apollo missions, where they found a crashed site on the moon and they found the robot head. Now, the head is identical to CP3Os. I mean, I'm not kidding. So there's also a picture that was floating around of a spacecraft that was parked in a one of the meteor holes, and it looked like the Millennium Falcon. So did he get the idea from NASA about a lot of this stuff? Okay. Now, after Star Wars came out and right before The Empire Strikes Back, they put a booklet out of all the different characters in Star Wars. Okay. The barroom werewolves are in there, and they're wearing body armor. Same description of what this soldier saw in Honduras. Same description of what the Canadian U.S. forces saw in Afghanistan and the special forces saw in Baghdad. So there's kind of a connection there. So we do know that there is a UFO connection to Dogman. Now, are these Dogmen that's running around extraterrestrials? I seriously doubt it. But if there is a canine type alien species, they could easily come to Earth and disguise themselves as domestic wolves. And could they mate with the domestic wolves? And that's where we get the Dogman. That's a possibility. That's a possibility.
Interesting. Could it be that if they are extraterrestrials, that they got stranded here and have a breeding population?
It's a possibility. It could be, but until one is put on the table and DNA is done, you can't tell. But you know as well as I, just being Bigfoot researcher, if a Bigfoot's ever found, okay, or Dogman's ever found, okay, if it ever got out that it's found, science is going to classify it something other than what it is. They're not going to say it's a Bigfoot. They're going to say it's something else, because science does not want to be wrong. Science does not want to be rewritten. Okay. So they're not going to say, yes, this is a Bigfoot. And if they say, yes, this is a Bigfoot, then science and history is wrong about mankind. And everything's going to have to be rewritten. And science isn't going to do that. They'll come out, like I said, they'll sit there and say that this is something other than what it is.
They give it a new name.
They give it exactly. They'd give it a whole new name, And they're going to say, no, it's not a Bigfoot. It's this here.
All right. Well, we're halfway through the show. We have to go to our commercial break. So please stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back with Jody Cook. Awesome. Good job. I got to open up my little chat with Sarge so I can see his telling me that we're back on.
Sorry, I kind of ramble a little bit.
No, it's good information. It's good information. I have never heard this stuff before. Like I said, we haven't looked into Bigfoot really before. So
Dogman.
Dogman. Sorry, I'm on the Bigfoot mindset all the time, I guess. But
yeah, I had a sighting. I had a Bigfoot sighting when I was in the Army. I had three other guys with. Yeah, he was about 12 feet away from us.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service too, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Tammy, you get to ask the next questions because I've been dominating here. Do you have some ready?
Well, he answered one of them that I had.
Wait till we go on the air, but
yeah, we'll wait.
Oh, there was that one question in the chat room about what the Native Americans say about Dogman.
Okay.
So Tammy can ask about that. Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and hey, we're the She-Squatchers. Won't you check us out online at She-Squatchers.com? And right there at the top of the page, you can find our events. Click our events link and click on that to see where we are going to be. April, we'll be in Washington State. May, we'll be in North Carolina. And June, we will be back in Washington State again. We don't have it on our website yet, but we are working on details of an event, which is a new one in September with Craig Woolheater down in Jefferson, Texas. We're going to do a paranormal Bigfoot weekend. And we're going to do something there that we've never done in a paranormal location before. But we've done it at events that were Paracons, and it's going to be really fun. We're gonna energize the whole spot, and it's going to be really awesome. We're going to do a paranormal investigation. We're going to go back to our old days of doing that, and also give some Bigfoot presentations. And it's just going to be a really fun weekend. So it's just going to be us and whoever wants to come, I guess. So that's going to be a good time. And we're also working on another thing in Oregon. I don't have all the details yet, so stay tuned for that. We are on YouTube, so please come subscribe to our channel at She-Squatchers Official, and come like and follow our pages on Instagram and Facebook as well. So we're back to the show with Jody Cook. He's come to us to share about Dogman and enlightening us on that situation. Tammy, did you have a question for Jody?
Yeah, I have a question, and then there's a couple of questions in the chat room. Me personally, I just heard of last fall, there was a sighting in Virginia Beach near Oceana, which is a naval base here in Virginia Beach. And what was described was a being that looked wolf-like, that was 12 to 14 feet tall. It was wearing some kind of cape or jacket garment thing that had a hood. And it was seen running across a road and jumping over a 12-foot fence.
We have had, within the last 5 years, okay, we've had 3 reports. Excuse me, Matt, you get ready to sneeze. We've had 3 reports of these dog-headed creatures or entities wearing hooded cloaks, but they were in cemeteries. all three of them, in different parts of the country, but they were walking in the cemetery where people who were there visiting their loved ones during the day, and they would see them, they would stop, they would look at them and move on. And they always described it. It was just a dog walking upright, wearing a cloak with a hood. So that's not uncommon to have to get a report like that. I've never seen, got a report where they were that big. Most of them were described around 6-7 feet, but it's not uncommon, to get a report like that.
Well, I was just curious because everybody's like, really? A cloak? Really? Mm-hmm. I was like, hey, I don't know.
Here's the thing. What's kind of interesting about that is because, like you said, all of our reports that we received were in cemeteries. And a lot of people don't realize when you think of a hellhound, they think it's just some horrible creature that is out killing people. It's not true. The hellhound was there to guard the souls in the cemetery from the demons. That was their whole purpose. And these things that we see walking around with hoods, could they be hellhounds? It's a possibility. We just don't know. And you might want to look a little bit into that report that you got there, where you read about, and see if there's a cemetery that's close by to where that took place.
I actually went there to look. I was trying to find one, so I was curious about it, and I went there to look. It jumped the fence onto the naval base, and around it there was power lines, which is a common place for Bigfoot. So I was like, well, we'll look down here, and there's power lines on one side of it, and then it's fence for miles. And so there's I don't believe there's a cemetery on Oceana, but I could be wrong. So.
They could be one on post.
Yeah.
It's a possibility. We gotten some reports where these things have got on installations that were classified installations. Okay.
Oceana.
And they have no idea how these things got on there.
Well, I was kind of wondering if they were from there and had just wandered out and then were seen going back.
Could be a possibility.
That was my question.
Yeah,
don't come for me, Oceana.
Well, the crazy thing about these military installations, you have to understand, or think about why are they having all these massive reports around military installations. And, give you an example. The FBI has 2,000 classified documents on Bigfoot and on other cryptids. And, well, why are they classified? Well, either it has to do with some type of top secret facility. They have to protect the names of the agents that are still doing undercover work, or something to that effect. The FBI is not collecting data. Okay, it's just when an FBI agent writes a report, he's very thorough, and if he sees something, he puts it in there. Okay, so there again, there's something about these installations that they're having all these massive sightings around it. Is there some type of energy that those installations are putting off that's pulling them in? I don't know, but there's something crazy about it.
Okay. Kat in the chat room was talking about, there's legends of Bigfoot in the Native American history. Do you know are there dogmen in Native American history legends?
There's some that I know of through like the Cherokee and the Shawnee. They have where they call it the dog that walks like a man. And the Shawnee, the thing about the Shawnee, okay, the Shawnee makes a lot of characters of what they see, masks and things like that. Okay, so there's something that's kept within the tribe. That now the Shawnee believe that the white man is extremely evil. Okay, if he lays eyes on anything that the Shawnee has some type of mask that represents Bigfoot or the wolf that walks like a man, it's just going to bring evil out. So that's why no one ever sees anything, of Native American, especially the Shawnee. Now, the Shawnee also talk about the big blue giant. So we don't know if the big blue giant is Bigfoot or if it's Dogman. Now, where I live, we have a Native American museum, and inside that museum, they have a battle axe by the Shawnee that they use to fight the big blue giants. That's in that museum. So we don't know if that is what they think is Dogman or Bigfoot, but we do know that the wolf that walks like a man is definitely Dogman. Same thing with the Cherokees. They have the same name for it, the wolf that walks like a man. And they even have masks. Okay. Now, Cherokee's masks, they all have crooked nose. Okay. The booger has a basic flat nose. The wolf that walks like a dog, the mask that I saw was very oval, had the high pointed ears and the snout that actually came out, which is very uncommon for a Cherokee mask. So it's all in representation. So, but I know those two tribes specifically know something about Dogman. Now, when you go off into the plain states, it's all kind of intertwined with the skinwalker stuff.
I personally wonder if Anubis isn't Dogman from Egyptian times.
It probably is, but yet here you have like King Lycan had a dog's head. The Vikings talked about battles with dog-headed men. Saint Christopher was the original Saint Christopher art that's in the Vatican has a dog's head. And the story behind that is the Catholics in the church, they fought against this race of dog-headed men. And St. Christopher was the only one left in the battle. So they spared his life. They taught him Christianity, and he became a saint. But when Christianity starts moving forward, people are not going to pray to a saint with an animal's head because that's paganism. So they end up giving him a human head. But in the Vatican Museum, there's actually a painting of St. Christopher with a dog's head. So there's a lot of history of dog-headed people going all the way through Babylonia, Egypt, Europe. So yeah, there's a lot of information on there about that.
Okay, and there's another question in the chat room. Do you guys get DNA samples, hair samples, and whatnot of Dogman as well? And who tests those?
There's a testing facility in Florida. That's one of the largest DNA facilities down there. We had some hair that we actually got from Kentucky, and it came back with an unknown species of canine. It didn't match up to any other domestic wolves in the world, didn't match up to any domestic dog. But here's the thing that the kicker, okay, the hair samples that was sent to them are missing now. They let us know that the hair samples they have no idea where the hair samples are.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. And they have to get, because we have it through email, okay, where they say, okay, this is what the hair samples came out. We have no idea what it is. It's some type of canine, but it's not from this world. It just doesn't match up to anything. And now, in order to get the actual report, we had to sit and request. It's like, dude, we paid good money for this. We want to report. We're at the point right now, we're ready to end up filing a lawsuit, because one, they have no idea where the hair is, missing. And now they don't want to give us the actual report showing that it's Dogman, actually Dogman's. So
it's not in the
somebody
database.
told them to lose it.
It's not the first time that has happened. We actually had a piece of hair that actually had a piece of flesh on it where it got stuck when this thing was crossing over a fence, and it came up missing. They had it, but it just, as soon as it went into the database, it came up missing.
Why would you submit the entirety of what you have to somebody else? Why wouldn't you keep some of it for yourself?
Oh, we did. We still have it in our possession. But here's the thing. The hair samples that they had a little bit of the hair sample left, and it was set back in a plastic bag. Okay, you don't put hair in plastic because it contaminates it. So what the hair they had left, the little bit that they sent back to us before they told us that the other set that they had came up missing, they purposely contaminated that hair, sending it back to us. And it's like, and it was like sent in a lunch bag.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, and when I was talking to him, I said, you guys know that you have to send this back in paper. Why would you send what was left back to us? Because we sent them like 2 separate sets of hair. So the one set is what came up missing. This set is what they sent only like half of it back, but it came back contaminated. So yeah. So something's not right there.
That's
Agreed.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Very much so.
Yeah.
Interesting. So the Dogman, how big are they usually? Like, what is the average size, and how much do they weigh? And
most people, when they describe them, just about 6 feet, 7 feet. We've had some reports where they're much, much bigger, but the body on these things, they're not massive, like muscular or anything like Bigfoot. They do have a broad chest, but a very slender body, very slender legs, very slender arms, much larger head. But this is how when most people describe them when they see them. They basically say that, in the summertime when their hair is not as much on them, where they shed their winter coat, they're able to see a lot more detail of the animal. But in the wintertime, when it has its winter coat, it's actually much bigger in appearance. So, but what we do when we're on an investigation, now we have hair samples from different species of wolves across the United States. And we have pheromones, and we use wolf urine. So when we're out in the field, we'll use like say this part of the time of the year, we'll end up using male urine. But in the beginning part of the year, going from like September up to December, we'll use female urine when we're out there to set pheromones out to try and pull one in, because it shows that the animal's ready for mating season. So, yeah. So it helps. We've had some good stuff that happened with the hair samples, with the hair that we use from different types of the wolves and stuff. So it's good to use.
interesting. That's interesting. I wonder if, you think that they could probably smell the difference between their own species and a wolf too, or
Well, the thing about predators, if the predator sense something, they're not just going to go in, guns loaded. Okay, they're going to stop and they're going to observe and they're going to pick up the scent and see if this thing's moving, if it's stationary. Okay, but if you have an apex predator that's in one particular area and he picks the scent up of something else that's not supposed to be there, okay, that's a threat to him. But he's going to monitor the situation before he even moves in, even further to any type of investigation. But we had that where we knew that there was something out there where it was basically circling, our samples and moving in, but it wouldn't go all the way to the point where it picked it up. Now, what we hope is one day that something's going to walk in, and just pick up the sample and go, hey, what's this? But they're much smarter than I think we give them credit for.
That makes sense. So you say they're an apex predator. That must mean that they are more aggressive. And what do they eat? Like, are they always aggressive?
We've got a lot of reports where they attack animals. Now, they don't eat them; they kill them. Here in Ohio, up in Akron, there was a gentleman that contacted us that was out in. He has a kennel. He raises German shepherds. He has a pretty big area, like 65 acres, that he has his kennel on. He's out in the woods with his daughter. They're just walking, and he sees this creature walking on two legs, going from tree to tree, watching them. And he's describing this thing as, a dog. Looks like one of his German shepherds. So he ends up going back to the house with his daughter. It was just him and his daughter, single father. And he would look out the window periodically to see if this thing followed him. And about 2 days later, he goes out to the kennel one morning, and one of his German shepherds was just ripped apart. Literally ripped apart. And the night after that, it happened again. He lost 8 German shepherds out of 15, where this thing basically would break in to the back of the kennels. And we have photographs of all the dogs, the remains of all the dogs. We have the x-rays of the dogs showing where this thing basically bit down so hard on the back of the German shepherd's heads. And these are full grown dogs. Okay. Bit so, back of the head and snapped the neck. And you're able to see on the x-rays the trauma that's there in the neck, the bite marks on the arms, the bite marks on the head. It did some damage on these dogs. And it got to the point where he's losing money. He's feared that these things are going to kill him and his child. And he packs up and he leaves, the area. And to this day, something is still attacking the kennels, even though there's nothing there. They're tearing the kennel apart. So he believes what he saw out in the woods that day was what was killing his dogs.
And he saw a Dogman.
Yeah, yeah. Because when most people see these things, they go, first thing they do, they go on a computer and say, okay, what does a werewolf look like? Because this was like a werewolf or, a dog standing. And that's how they sit there and figure out what they see as a Dogman.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just, you would think if they were some type of a dog species that they would have a kinship of some kind to dogs, right?
You would think, but I think they kill to prove a point to let you know they're there. We did a investigation outside of the Skinwalker Ranch at this one property where there's a little community of farmers. There are probably about 5 to 6, maybe 7 houses in this little community. So they know there's a Bigfoot there. They've seen the Bigfoot. The Bigfoot never bothered them, never bothered the livestock or their pets. And then their horses are start being attacked. So we have pictures of these horses where this thing attacked a horse head on. Okay. And there's 5 claw marks going down the chest of the horse. And we got pictures of this thing and where it was attacking it from behind. And they end up seeing what they describe as a werewolf that's attacking their animals. And these people are seeing it. This thing was coming up on people's porches and looking in their windows in their home. So one night they heard all this horrible screaming. So they said like the whole community came out and was listening to this. And they know this Bigfoot and this Dogman were fighting because they were hearing this thing. And after that night, they never saw the Bigfoot again. But this thing was continued to be there. It would kill like fawns and take the fawns and throw them in people's yards. Just crazy, crazy things. Like this one there, it killed the fawn, threw it on the trail next to her house. She was going for a walk. She sees it. She goes back up to her house to get a shovel to bury it, because she was heavy animal protection agency and all this stuff. I mean, she was just pro animal. And when she went back down to bury it, it was gone. So she goes back out, puts the shovel back down, goes back out, walking out, and it's laying there. I mean, this thing was taunting the people. That's intelligence. And she's got pictures of mud prints, canine mud prints on her front porch, handprints on her window where this thing would look into her window. Very strange stuff that was going on. And people's like, they're selling their farms because they are so terrified of this creature.
What do their handprints look like?
Very human handprints. Yeah. Opposable thumb, 4 fingers there. And this thing, it's like, it's clawing up trees around these people's homes where it's just making claw marks on the trees. Like it's showing, this is my area. Yeah. It's a scary situation for these people out there. And like you said, they're not far from the Skinwalker Ranch where a lot of this activity is taking place.
So it's a Dogman in Skinwalker territory?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where the Skinwalker. Yeah. Look, there's a lot of activity that, Dogman activity that's taking place in Utah, like you wouldn't believe. Okay, and there's a lot of activity that, there's a feedback going on here. Can you hear that?
I did.
Okay.
I think it's done.
There's a lot of activities taking place on Skinwalker Ranch that you will never see on the TV show because they don't want that stuff on there. They want you to more look at the UFO and alien abduction and all that crazy stuff.
Oh, Jody, we just don't have enough time with you. I think we're going to have you come back another time and share more with us. We just have a little bit of time left. Can you tell everybody where they can find you and your books?
You can find me on Facebook under Jody Cook or any other North American Dogman Project pages on Facebook. You can contact me on my site, www.NorthAmericanDogmanProject.com. My books are on Amazon. You can just type my name in and you can find them there.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you for coming on the show tonight. We're going to have to schedule you to come on again because I have many questions. And I know everybody else does too. They've just been enjoying this show very much. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next week, everybody. Tune in for Ron Moorhead next week.
Bye.
Bye.